Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a beautiful day. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I am super excited because I am going to be joined by my big sister, Natasha. She's going to be reading with us. So here she is. Hey, big sister.
Hi, everybody. How are you, Mia? Mia,
Doing,
Mia.
doing. Can't complain. Can't complain. So,
Yeah, great.
how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It was a very productive day, so I am grateful for that. So glad to be here tonight.
Awesome. Yes, I know you always have wonderfully productive days.
Yeah.
Hey Jen, thanks for coming
Hi,
from
Jen.
beach. That's exciting, right? Oh,
Yeah, in
I
the
used
beach.
to go to the beach. Little. I used to love going to Santa Monica Pier and Malibu. Which
Okay.
beach you at, Jen? I want to know. I'm like, I haven't beach. We were supposed to go to the beach today too, but it was supposed to rain, so we went to Walmart
Ah, yeah.
to get beach
Well, after
chairs.
this is over, we can fly out to California. We still got time.
Oh, I love Redondo. Okay, yes. My
Okay.
parents used to live in Lawndale, so that was super close.
Okay.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. If you are here, please let us know where you're joining us from. I'll let Natasha start us off. We're actually starting off tonight at the bottom of page 47,
Okay.
very
And
last sentence. And
gotcha.
we're gonna
And
try
I
to
did have my tab there. So,
good, good. Okay, we'll start us off, sis.
okay. All right. We are reading still the Ten Commandments of Black Economic Power by Dr. Boyce Watkins, who we just love to death. The fact is that Black people must become the primary educators of Black people. This educational process must be decentralized and occur within each family so as to minimize the influence of those with alternative or problematic interests. By decentralized, I mean that the process should be controlled by individual families, not a nationwide system. Most systems have never been beneficial to Black people at all and have only served to harm or exploit us. That's because most of these systems were not designed with Black prosperity in mind. Want to talk on that? Or
Go
keep
ahead,
going?
sis. Keep no, we can do you.
Well, I mean, it's like Dr. Claude Anderson says in his book, Black Labor, White Wealth. We were never taught to own. And so everything that we were taught is to go outside of ourselves for our income, for our health, for our education, everything. And so we have to learn now, and I think many of us are learning now, that everything we need is inside of us, and we need to create those ecosystems or those ecosystems in order to be able to sustain us as a whole, as well as individually and collectively.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was just telling Virginia, welcome Virginia,
Welcome.
about this amazing weekend that I had among some genius black people. And I was just like, this is the ecosystem. This
Hmm.
is I was like, we if I was like, this is happening in the backyard in Brooklyn. Imagine if this was happening in every city in the United States and we were all trying to figure out solutions to elevate our people. I mean, it would be mind blowing.
Yeah. Yes, it would be. And the thing about it is it doesn't have to take a whole lot of people, because when you think about it, if you look at who's, quote unquote, running the world, it's only a small group of people. But
Yep.
they have, programmed us to think that we have no power, and yet we do. So it doesn't take everybody. As Dr. Boyce said, those Negro naysayers, they can stay where they are. I don't care. This train is moving, and we're picking up momentum, and we want to keep moving with those who want to move with us.
Exactly. Yep. 100%. Yep. Love it. Love it.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yep.
Welcome, Doriel. All right.
Yeah.
Keep on going, sis. This is
Okay.
good. This
Okay.
is good.
Let's see. Also, a thorough economic education must be essential for every Black child in our community. Teaching a Black child economics is as important as teaching a hunter how to shoot a gun. She must learn how to start a business, how to invest in stock, how to acquire and control real estate and any of the other essentials necessary to be a successful Black man or woman in America and around the world. Black wealth must be a rite of passage. In the Black Business School, we train thousands of children on the fundamentals of wealth. My logic for creating such a program for Black youth was simple. If our kids learn about economics first, they will be able to win the competition. I have to admit that I believe equality is a fairy tale. There is no point in American history where Black people have been able to partner with the rest of America and end up on the winning side of the program. That part. The truth is that preparing our children with our own methods, we can best ensure they will be prepared to compete with children from other communities. Jump in anytime. Just let me know when you want me to stop.
Yeah, this is the keep it. I'm thinking because it's so interesting that the part that he talks about, making sure the kids learn economic first,
Mm-hmm.
because that's one thing I did learn early on. Like my dad was always like, somebody in the house got to have a job, somebody got to have a hustle,
Mm-hmm.
because well, he meant a
Okay.
business.
Yeah.
So important because both my sister and I are both full-time entrepreneurs now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we learned the importance of, like, owning and having a business, but we heard that over and over and over again, and so I totally agree with that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Hi, Mr. Bora. The beauty of it all is that you don't have to make it complicated. Basic economic principles taught at an early age that focus on simple wealth acquisition, growth, and preservation are typically enough to put your child well ahead of everyone else. One model we use in the Black Business School is the POISE model. POISE stands for producer, owner, investor, saver, entrepreneur. Any child who grows up committed to being a producer versus a consumer is typically going to end up with a higher wealth level than most. If he or she is an owner of assets rather than a renter, his or her economic situation will be better than most. If your child is an investor rather than a spender, your child will see his or her money grow rather than leave his or her pocket. Investors are simply people who know how to delay gratification, making a sacrifice today so they can reap the benefits tomorrow. Unfortunately, delayed gratification is no longer taught in many households. Much of the focus is on having things right now.
Mhm.
A child who is taught to be a saver is likely to be wealthy because saving is the intentional act of economic accumulation. By saving a percentage of his or her income, the child has more stored away for a rainy day. Also, saving gives you the ability to make the moves necessary to improve your economic situation. The E stands for entrepreneur. The Black community is in dire need of visionaries who come with the skills and desire to create independent economic institutions that are capable of creating jobs for other people. As it stands, we've spent hundreds of years training ourselves to work for other people.
So let's talk about this because
Hmm.
um, it's so interesting. So at the my revolutionary weekend that I had, one of the ladies mentioned that we had this before. We had economic institutions like Black Wall Street, Rosewood in Florida. There were pockets of successful and thriving Black economic centers. However,
Hmm.
historically, we know that those centers ended in violence, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And you know I wonder, what people, because we have all it takes to recreate that now, but I wonder what is stopping the recreation of that. Because my dad said that when growing up in the Jim Crow South, their communities were self contained. You didn't go
Hmm.
to white communities for anything,
Hmm.
you did everything yourself. So, what do
Hmm.
you think about that?
I truly believe in that because, doing my study, it wasn't just, Tulsa, Oklahoma or Rosewood, Florida. It was also in my state, Charleston, South Carolina. There was Greensboro, North Carolina. There was also I want to say, I think it was Savannah, Georgia. So there were several of these hubs that was there. And I'm like you, well, what is the problem now? I think the problem is that we've gotten too comfortable. And some would say laziness, but no, I think it's probably being uninspired because we've gotten comfortable in being dependent upon someone else, that we've gotten to the point where we don't want to do the work anymore. And so when I realized that, excuse me, that when we don't self sustain, situations like what's going on becomes detrimental because we're not growing our own food, we're not defending ourselves, we're not educating our own children. And so you become dependent on a system that consistently seeks to oppress you. But when we get together and reclaim who we are as a people, then we can bring that back home. Because my concern is, I'm not worried about what anybody else is doing. I'm not concerned about them because they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to be who they are. What we need to do, in the term that I've discovered is called Sankofa, to go back and fetch, means let's go back to the things that sustain melanated people. Let's go back to the things that helped us to thrive in those communities that you and I mentioned. So when we educate ourselves, we educate our children, when we grow our own food. I remember growing up where people made their own clothing. Heck, they made their own blankets and different things like that. So we didn't have to go out. They knew the herbs that was in the woods that you could get. If somebody got sick and you go and grab those herbs and you boil it and you give it to them, and then you pack them down in the covers and let them sweat out, and then the next day they're better. They knew what to do. They knew how to take the little that they had and turn it into much. And I think if we do that now and realize whatever strength and gifts that we have, we focus on that and then offer it to the community. So not only we build our own economic hub in terms of finances, investing and whatever, but we also do that with food, shelter, clothing, so that no one gets left behind.
Agreed, 100%. It's a community mentality, community collective.
Exactly.
Because I definitely learned that concept in college, through African Student Union.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of our advisors, because I can be a loner from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bradford, that's my maiden name. He'd be like, Bradford, you're not an island, in his South African accent. He's from South Africa. He went back.
Okay.
And I'd be like, I know, Tim, I know. Like, but he was just like community, because in their culture, in South African culture, it is about the community and we rise together. And even in NABA, which is the National Association of Black Accountants, where I was the student chapter president, the motto was lifting as we climb. And so it was ingrained in me from an early age that you don't just rise so you can get out the hood and then not look back. We got to go reach back and go and help the next one,
Yeah. And I totally agree with that, because I'm the same way. I tend to be, an island. I tend to be a loner because sometimes I just don't have the energy for people today. I just don't. But at the same time, I've learned to let's move with those that want to move, because even in the concept of going back, I feel like some people you're just not going to go back and reach, because if they're not in the process of trying to progress at that moment, then why am I going to go back and reach for you when you could be just the one that dragged me down? Because the thing of it is everybody is not meant to go with you on your evolving journey. And I've learned that we all incarnated here for our own journey and our own purpose. So to try to bring everybody with us could be detrimental to us. Plus, not only that, you could keep them from learning their own path and their own journey by trying to bring them along, especially if they have no interest in what you are doing. So for me, I let spirit lead me into, who I can share the information with, because I've learned in my past, everybody don't want to be free. And freedom is not easy. It is not easy. So everybody don't want to be free. So if you want to stay in your bondage, that's fine. And I'm finding it's a challenge. The things that I'm learning, it's a challenge. But I want my true freedom. And that's my sovereign freedom that was guaranteed to me just from the very fact that I was born into this world.
Girl, I got to go back and watch this replay because you just preached a whole word. So, and then we're gonna get back to this. Okay. Like, so I was doing an energetic healing, and what she told me was that, I was a trailblazer in my family because I am so very, very different in how I think, what I'm doing, what I like, what I don't, all of this. I'm just, like, let's just say everybody doesn't want to be free, like you said. People get comfortable, right? And essentially, long story short, I realized, like, when I came in contact with these new people that I hadn't met before, and they were like up here with their level of consciousness, and thinking, and I was like, yes, but I was like, I'm not gonna get that over here where people don't want to be free. And that's okay. You love people where they are, but that doesn't mean that me or anyone else needs to stop our elevation and our trailblazer. Because by us living out our purpose, we, that can liberate somebody else. It may not be, but it can liberate somebody else.
Yep. You just said a mouthful, sis, and I'm proud of you because you are so right. Again, I can't sit up here and worry about somebody else and trying to bring them along if they don't want to come along with me, and that shouldn't stop me from my growth. Because again, I've learned through experience that some people don't want to hear anything. Sometimes it's just the simplest thing. And this all ties back to what Dr. Boyce is saying, because if we are trying to educate our own children, some people got a problem with that. They want to send them to somebody else. If we're trying to create our own economic survival needs, and not so much as survival, but create our own economic outlet in terms of having our own business and entrepreneurship like you and your sister are doing, some people don't want that. They want to be dependent upon that paycheck and whatnot. So again, like you said, the mindset, I consider myself the black sheep of my family because I knew I was different from long ago, and I'm in my 53rd cycle now. And so here it is I'm still having that obstacle that I have to cross with them. I'm no longer creating any more obstacles for myself by talking to people who don't want to elevate, who don't want to grow. And so for me, if that means I'm a loner, I'm a Taurus, we tend to be loners anyway, then so be it. But thankfully, I have like-minded sisters like yourself, and in the sisterhood, some of those that are in the chat, we are about evolving. We are about growth. Because as I have said many times before, and I continue to say, the sleeping giants are waking up, and we are no longer going back to sleep. So,
come on. Okay, so I'll start us on 50, and then we'll go and forth. So teach your child to be a kid. Okay. And look, some of us need to go back to childhood because, even the Bible talks about, you got to be childlike to enter the kingdom.
Exactly.
Okay. So
exactly.
The KID model is a method of wealth building for children that I created to help Black parents understand how easy it is to put your child in a financially advantageous position. By preparing well in advance, a child doesn't have to work as hard as others and has access to freedoms and liberties that are not available to most young adults. I once had a conversation with a friend of mine who then proceeded to borrow money from me. He didn't realize that in exchange for my loaning him money that I knew he'd never repay, I would use his story as a way to more deeply understand why so many young adults don't even have enough money to buy new tires or survive more than a month without a job. After speaking to my friend for a while, I figured out a few things. First, nobody ever taught him anything about wealth. He never learned how to make money. He didn't know any of the secrets of the rich, and he had no idea how people increase their income. In fact, he had almost no ability to process what financial security even looked like. So he never learned how to make money, didn't know any secrets of the wealth of the rich, I should say, and no idea how people increase their income. So if we were to rate ourselves on a scale of 1 to 3 of those three things, where would we be, right? And so, And the reason why I'm asking that, not in judgment or anything like that, is just
Mhm.
awareness, right? Like, where will we be on those levels? Because I think sometimes also too, maybe our parents don't teach us because they just don't know and they don't feel confident in teaching us, right? For varying
Mhm.
reasons. Um,
I agree.
so let's keep going here. In fact, he had almost no ability to process what financial security even looked like. For my friend, financial security was something that simply happened to other people. You know, the ones he would then go beg for money. And then the second thing I noticed as my friend told his story was that nobody ever prepared a financial table for him. Like many people in our community, he never received an inheritance, had no family savings, owned no property, and didn't even own a single share of stock. In other words, no one ever took the time to prepare him for the financial storms that lay ahead. The third thing I noticed is that my friend was never taught discipline. And this is a key factor, discipline
Mhm.
and delayed gratification, right? His father left him when he was a child, so he never learned the lessons of hard work and determination that my parents taught me. In fact, his parents never really taught him much of anything. That's why he was, quite frankly, such a miserable failure.
Oh,
That's rough. That's rough.
yeah.
This helped me understand why my friend wasn't just dead broke, but that everything anyone had ever done for him his entire life had prepared him for a life of complete destitution. Now that's rough.
Mhm.
If
Very rough.
if you don't prepare to be financially secure, then you won't be. So guess what? It's a preparation game.
Yep.
So the kid model, I'm just underlining this because this
Mhm.
I mean, it's intentional basically is what.
Yep.
So the kid model is a bit of a vaccine for those who want to protect their children from the virus of financial insecurity. I hate financial insecurity, y'all.
Mhm. Oh yes.
KID stands for knowledge, investment, and discipline. Doriel, you might want to use that too.
Mhm.
Knowledge, investment, and discipline. The model is very simple and looks like this: knowledge. Every Black child should learn to start a business by the age of 12 in case they don't want the jobs that are available. I don't care if it's selling lemonade, they need to know how to exchange some type of service or product for money, whatever it is.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
was selling Avon by the time I was in seventh grade.
Yeah.
Okay. I did have that hustle mentality.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
I was making money early in life, y'all. So if I don't
Mhm.
have a certain amount of money, I don't feel right. You know what I
Eh,
mean?
okay, exactly. I remember those days of selling candy and those little those stick candies we used to sell for like 15 cents or whatever. Like, yeah. I'm like, I was a hustler before I even knew what it was.
Exactly. Yep.
Hmm.
Yes. Thank you, Deborah. Awesome.
Hmm.
Jen is having her first black
Yeah,
tomorrow. That's dope.
that's
A lot of good stuff
awesome.
going on in this chat here. I see Doriel's a Taurus right along with you.
Okay, go Doriel. Taurus. Mr. Boreas too.
Oh, that's what's up. Miss Deborah, when is your birthday? I don't think I knew this. Did I miss it? Oh no, I did wish you a happy birthday. Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, good. I was like, wait a minute. Okay. So, every Black child should be trained in economics as a fundamental component of their learning process. Also, the language around the home should simply be that of job seeking as a way to earn money. There must also be discussions about owning assets. I think that's supposed to say should not be the only.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at too.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, I'm not really a good employee.
No, I don't have the patience for it anymore.
I'm like, no, no, thank you. I just love that I like when most people are chilling in the evening, I chill in the morning.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was like, no, I need to just flip my own world.
Yeah, I know, right?
Do me. There must also be discussions about owning assets, starting businesses, and making investments. So that's what I'm doing with my little nephew. He's 8,
Hmm.
and I've already taught him. You know what I did, y'all? This is how I got
What?
interested. So I got my Fidelity app on my phone.
Uh-huh.
So my nephew is he's very, very clever. So I showed him my portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, TT, you got this much money? I was like, yep. I said, would you like me to show you how you too can have this much money? He
Mm-hmm.
said, yep. I said, but let me break it down to you. So I showed him. So I started that particular account, I think in 2021 or 2022. I
Mm-hmm.
said, how much money is that? How much money did TT have in 2022? I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I said, very good. Because I was teaching him how to read the chart. I said, how
Mm-hmm.
much money does TT have now? And then I said, see, TT doubled her money in 3 years. Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to learn how to double your money in 3 years? He was
Oh,
like,
wow.
yes, I do. And nobody else except him had seen, well, my husband, of course, has seen that.
Got to show the hubby.
Right. So I'm like, look, I was like, show them that it works, right? Because
That's
he didn't
right.
like money. And I
Mm-hmm.
taught him, how to choose. Like, okay, I'm giving you $50. How much of this money goes into your stock market account? How much
Mm-hmm.
goes towards you buying a toy? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing is people, some black people that I know, I don't want to make a general statement, is that they have the consumer versus the investor mindset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because we're not broke, y'all. Like, we're
No,
not
we're not.
like $1 trillion in spending power. Imagine if
Mm-hmm.
we didn't use that for consumer goods. What if we invested more than we consumed?
Mm-hmm.
How?
Exactly.
Because I mean, it's just mind blowing to know how much consumer power that we have, but we don't use our power to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves as a community as a whole. Well, I don't want to make a general statement, but
Mm-hmm.
as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome because even with you, telling him, with the $50, how much do you put in your, stock investment account before you buy toys? Because even in that, that's a lesson there too. Because you can let them know it's okay to enjoy nice things. It's okay to enjoy the things that you want, but make your investment a priority because you're not going to stay at one stage in your life forever. As long as you take care of yourself and do what you need to do, you're going to live. And you want your money to not only outlive you, but you want it to be enough for you when you get, older. So to be able to even share that small example for him, that's a great lesson. Great lesson.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My baby. Okay. We'll finish up this section. One day we're gonna finish lesson 3, y'all, because lesson 3 is long, but this is good because especially if you have kids or you're teaching young people,
Mm-hmm.
I like to volunteer with young people. So I think by next week we're gonna have to try to finish this because we've been in chapter 3 for a moment.
Okay.
So investment. A child that has oh, I forgot the last sentence in knowledge. The ownership language must be louder than the job language. Investment. A child that has economic knowledge must also have assets to work with. So capital. Capital is key. Every
Mm-hmm.
black child should own shares of stock before they are born, with shares being added to the stockpile every single week. Think of it like supplying weapons, tools, and food for the troops who are preparing for battle. My free ebook on the $5 a day investing plan can be found at boycewatkins.com. So make sure y'all get that $5 a day investing plan at boycewatkins.com.
Mm-hmm.
And this book explains how a person who consistently invests just $5 a day for their child can have nearly $250,000 in liquid assets by the time the child is 30 years old. Ambitious families can triple this amount. A young person with $250,000 in the bank is never going to be forced to go to work. That person is never going to be locked into renting property instead of owning it. A person in this position doesn't have the financial problems I described with my friend above. And then lastly is discipline. A person can have all the knowledge in the world and all the resources, but without discipline, none of this will ever come to pass. One thing I just want to drop here is that even if your kid have $250,000, they need to be financially literate. Because if they owe
Mm-hmm.
$250,000, then we still back at square one. So that's important too.
Exactly.
So let's see where it says, my friend wasn't just broke, he was broken. He wasn't motivated to change his behavior and consistently broke promises to himself. This goes back to what Natasha was saying about people not wanting to really be free.
Mm-hmm.
A child who is raised to have discipline has the ability to see his visions to fruition. So we must raise children who think this way in our families. The dominant culture does not do this. This is why so many Black children fail when it comes to economic preparation in America.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, um, I don't know, Natasha, what do you think if we go one more section? Or if y'all are okay, we'll go one more section because I know Dr. Boyce is canceled tonight. What do you think?
I'm with you, Queen, if you want to do that.
All right, you want to go ahead on the Black Core of Three on page 53?
I sure can.
Awesome.
The Black Core of Three, core values to live by. When starting a business or institution, you must start by creating a set of core values for your organization. Core values are the beliefs you live by and the terms that describe who you are. They lay out a framework for you to process your decisions in order to determine if a project or venture is appropriate for you. In the Black Business School, we defined our core values many years ago. Our core beliefs are as follows. Might need to highlight this or underline it. Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black owned businesses. Mic drop right there. The reason I believe Black people should educate our own children and that the miseducation of Black people is one of the greatest challenges being faced by our community. We are stuck in a world where our kids are being educated by teachers who know nothing about their culture and care nothing about their community. Sending Black children to poorly run schools controlled by whites leads to the following outcomes. Black kids are suspended and punished at a much higher rate than whites. Black children are more likely to be placed in special education. Black children are typically unable to read, write, or do math at grade level. Our kids are trained to love everything white and hate everything Black, turning them into significant liabilities for the Black community. The most horrific reality of the miseducation of Black people is that it leads to a multi-trillion-dollar brain drain on the Black community. Even the most educated Black children are trained to adopt the ideas and value systems of white people and then attend white-run universities, which put them into a lifetime of debt, thus draining their family wealth. Continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, I do want to comment there.
Okay.
I do want to say, I did, I was very fortunate in that I went to a small Black private school growing up, from preschool to third grade.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think I mentioned this last week, how life-changing it was. And Chelsea had chimed in on that too,
Mm-hmm.
because, everybody was above grade level. We felt loved. My principal came to my college graduation.
Mm.
So it's like full circle.
Mm-hmm.
And because I wasn't with her for like since from 9, and then
Mm-hmm.
at 22 she was still in my
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yeah.
So I think it does speak volumes to us educating our own kids, making sure our kids are where they need to be, and we got to take that responsibility no matter how much of a, I hate to say heavy lift, but how much of a responsibility it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with you because I've been grateful and fortunate myself that from kindergarten to high school, I would say probably 96% of my teachers were Black. And because my mother was a teacher in the beginning of my life, by the time I got just to middle school, they already knew who I was. And even more so when I got to high school, and like you said, the teachers cared. You felt love, like it felt like a family. Sometimes even as a kid, that bull will rise up and I get mad at the teachers or whatever, and it just put me in my place, and I had to come back and apologize. But it felt like family. Like I looked forward to going to school because I knew the teachers that I was going to see. They were like aunties to me, and unfortunately. Now we have a generation, like I have a niece and nephew that's in high school, and my niece in her natural beauty doesn't recognize it because she's in this predominantly white school where she's feeling like she can't wear her natural hair, where she's wearing wigs, she's self-conscious about her weight. And I try to let my sister know, you need to get her out of that school, and she's thinking because she's getting a better education. not at the detriment to her self-esteem. She's not getting the education based on that. And so what do? We have to educate our own children, even if it's a small thing where we use the power of the internet, create our own educational co-op, and whatever educator or whatever specialization somebody has, log them onto a Zoom, and we're going to teach, the math, we're going to teach the science, we're going to teach the social stuff, whatever it is that we want to do for our children and their unique learning needs. Because contrary to what we think, our children do have unique learning needs more so than other cultures. Let's not only that, they learn faster, and we need to understand that.
That part. And it's no excuse because you got the internet. Like you can go find what you need easy, right? Like
exactly.
You can find co-ops, like homeschool co-ops and things of that nature where
exactly.
Even, if you decide to homeschool, the whole curriculum and everything is not on you. So everything is at our fingertips at this point.
Exactly.
And so and do it in community, do it collectively.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you feel like you can't find one, create one.
That part. Excellent. So where are we? Yes, after family wealth is drained.
Okay. After the family wealth is drained by the miseducated Black person, they then move out of Black neighborhoods and work for white-owned companies, making white people wealthier in the process. This is in addition to buying white-owned products from white-owned businesses. This process ensures that the bulk of our economic resources is devoted to propping up the values of white-owned businesses, real estate, and educational systems. When you consider this procedure and how it works, it's very easy to understand why Black wealth keeps going backward, even as white wealth is growing by leaps and bounds. The reason we as Black people must create our own jobs is simple. We typically hate working for white people. During my Black Business Mastermind in the Black Business School, I asked my students a simple question. Have you ever been the victim of racial discrimination on the job? Meaning, have you ever been denied a job, passed over for a promotion, or mistreated on the job because you were Black? Yes, yes, and yes. The answer is always a resounding yes. Typically, over 90% of my students answer the question in the affirmative, and the few who say no are those who were never trained to work for a white person. Good for them.
That part.
Exactly. So I ask you this question. Why do we tolerate this form of abuse? What's so special about white people that we abandon our own so we can go work alongside them? When I ask these questions, I am often accused of racism, but the truth is that I simply don't care. Black love is only seen as a form of racism by those who are completely tone deaf to the torture millions of Black people have endured in this country. The last part of the Black Core of 3 is that we must support Black-owned businesses. This rule makes perfect sense because Black people are the ones most likely to hire Black or invest in Black communities. Most people in other communities have zero interest in finding and supporting Black-owned businesses, so it is our job to support them ourselves. Supporting Black-owned businesses makes sense, even if the price is a tad bit higher. Consider this example. If I spend $1 at Walmart, that dollar disappears forever. The company takes the cash, pays expenses, puts it in its bank account, and distributes the funds to shareholders. Most of them are white. But if I spend that same dollar with a Black-owned business, that business owner likely has Black employees, Black suppliers, or Black family members that the money is used to support. So spending $1 in the Black community can easily turn $1 into $4 or $5, depending on how many Black people pass that dollar before it leaves the community. Also, the Black Core 3 is a recursive model, meaning that it feeds into itself. If we support Black-owned businesses, this gives the Black business owner the capital necessary to hire more Black people and invest in them. It even gives us the ability to fund our own schools or build schools that operate with profitable business models that are disconnected from government-sponsored curricula. The reality is that we must find a way to independence. Anything short of that will represent a repetition of our failures of the past. The Black Core 3 can also be applied to individual families. Any family in this country has the ability right now to educate its own children, create its own jobs, and supports its own businesses. But the culture within the family must be one that is self sustaining with a clear hierarchy and code of conduct. If the family sticks to a set of rules and abides by an agreed upon system, it can provide for all its needs with minimal outside interference.
Wow, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, can you imagine like a whole bunch of black families that operate as it like business entities and are moving in one, in one direction for their
Mhm.
greatness? I can't even get the words out because I'm like literally having a whole visual moment. Like
Mhm.
that would be just so dope.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be because even I remember like with our food growing up, and these are things that it's like, why did we get away from that? For the most part, fruits and vegetables and different things like that was provided by the community. There was a man across the street from me that had a cornfield. You could go out there and get fresh corn. My mother's godfather would bring her fresh greens. My uncles would go fishing and they, bring us fish. There was another family member that, had a whole sweet potato field. Like a lot of things that I grew up with, our own people provided for it. Yes, they worked other jobs, but at the same time, that funded what they needed to do. And
Mm.
so for me, it's like how, you know, it was so empowering when I look back at it, but didn't know it at the time. Because for us, that was just natural. We got our food and stuff from each other. We got support from each other. The children were educated by people that looked like them. So it was just a natural thing for us. I think we can go back, like he said in his book, Dr. Boyce. We have the resources now. We have it to do what we can do. Utilize the technology. Don't be afraid of it. Learn it, figure out how you can utilize it for your benefit, and let's take back our community. Let's take back our families. Let's take back our children. Let's take back ourselves, because the time is now where the greatest wealth transfer are occurring. And it doesn't necessarily always mean money. The wealth is in our mindset, who we are as melanated people, where we can show the world we don't need you, you need us. And it's time for us to do that.
Amen and amen. I agree with you 100%. It is time for that wake up call. So, I mean, y'all know Natasha be dropping these gems, as y'all know, as y'all can see. Um, I just encourage each of you, if you haven't, kind of thought about what are your core values for your family, and think about like how you might be able to implement these um, principles with your family, and really most importantly with your children, because if this gets ingrained in them, they're going to take this with them for the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
I love that you like what Natasha always says, like, you give a woman a house, she turns it into a home. You give a woman a seed, she turns it into a new life. So we are multipliers by nature.
That's
And
right.
I think I was listening to the radio or some type of post. Now I'm
Mhm.
going to butcher this story a little bit, but it was talking about Hawaii and how, I guess this guy, he wrote a op-ed piece or something like that. But
Mhm.
basically, he was a park ranger on the land that his ancestors grew up on, and he had to work on the land because the gentrifiers came in.
Mhm.
They basically charged all this money, and they couldn't keep their land anymore, and they turned it into a
Mhm.
national park. And now he had to pay rent in work in order to be able to stay on his family's land that was there for generations.
Oh wow.
They were talking about how like basically, the gentrifiers, they come in and they instead of they say, oh, you don't need to plant fields anymore. We can
Mhm.
provide you with food. And like,
Mhm.
oh, or we'll give you seeds, and this will be a cheaper way than you having to do all the work yourselves. And then
Mhm.
they encroach and they encroach and they encroach, and you
Exactly.
never have your stuff.
Exactly.
And so we also got to be careful not to fall for the okey doke. Well, it's too late, but I mean,
Exactly.
many people have fell for the okey doke because why we don't know how to do. Like, let me speak for me. That's why I don't know how to do nothing. I mean, if I be in trouble, I feel like, what? I don't know. And I used to want to be a farmer, and I got away from it. I used to read books on farming and gardening and stuff but now, like, if I had to do it, I'm like, I wouldn't know. Exactly, Deborah.
We got you.
So with that,
we got you. We ain't gonna let you stop, sis.
I'm coming to stay with you, Natasha. Me and Mr. James, we coming, okay?
We got room for you.
Thank you. So thank you for coming tonight, Natasha. It's always great having you as a co-hostess. And next week will be it's gonna be Chelsea next week, y'all. I will be out of town and I will be in a conference. And so Chelsea's gonna come on and she's going to read for us. I'll let her know where we ended off. We ended off on page 7, and Chelsea will run it next week, and then I'll watch the replay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, for having me. I enjoy being here and seeing the comments, everyone in the comments. And so this is always fun to be with my sis. So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Well, sweet dreams, everyone. Thank y'all for your time. Thank you for those who stayed late, and continue to elevate your economic consciousness as we navigate these waters. And always remember to follow your heart.
That's right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Love y'all.
All right, here we go.